Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let me just say this. First, let's talk about boxing. Bob Arum and Al Haymon have buried the hatchet, right? Good for them and us, the boxing public. Right, let's get top-ranked fighters on PBC's free TV show. Right, understand Mayweather and Pacquiao are both retired right now. Mayweather is so retired that he's challenging wrestlers. Right, the current HBO and Showtime and pay-per-view model doesn't work. Only a few fighters get paid. Understand, Arum and Haymon got together and worked out a deal that was so uninspiring to then champion Mickey Bay that Mickey Bay passed on the opportunity of making less than $100,000 to defend his belt. Right? Understand, being connected, Bay, a Mayweather Promotions fighter, right, fighting under Al Haymon's banner, right, offered a spot on a Bob Arum show with all the connections out there. They offered this champion less than $100,000, right? Don't get blinded by the numbers being received by people like Canelo, Miguel Cotto, right? There's very little money in boxing under the current model. Now, let's be real here. Let me continue on the soapbox. Had Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao on free TV, that fight would have drawn Super Bowl numbers. What's better for the sport? A big fight in private before some VIPs and people crazy enough to pay around $100 to watch it on pay-per-view? Or a fight on free TV where the boxing public could get involved, where the boxing public could actually be introduced to the fighters on the undercard, right? Think about how the NFL would limit itself if the playoffs and Super Bowl were limited to HBO and Showtime, right? Could you imagine the NBA Finals limited to HBO and Showtime, right? Ridiculous. Let's hope that Bob Arum and Al Haymon figure things out and take the sport in a different direction. Let me also point out, too, boxing's so crazy that right now Golden Boy continues to sue Al Haymon, right? Absurd. Somebody needs to call all of these people out. Next, let me congratulate the Charlo brothers. Both are champs at 154 pounds. Let me also point out, though, that Austin Trout certainly helped his brand by taking a tough fight and by looking great in the fight, right? Austin Trout now is a viable opponent, a viable contender at 154 pounds. Let's also look more closely at that division, right? Saul Alvarez is in that division because middleweight's too big for him, apparently, right? Miguel Cotto is also in that division because middleweight's too big for him, right? Guys like Kell Brook's big for welter, could easily venture to 154 pounds. Amir Khan just fought at 160 pounds. Right? The 154-pound division is now one of the best in boxing. Understand, too, there's some other people at 154, right? Andrade, or Andre as he calls himself, right? He's also in the mix, right? There are very few divisions right now that are as loaded as 154 pounds. But for me personally, the fight that riveted me this last weekend was actually the Joseph Parker versus Carlos Takam fight. Now, boxing's an expectation game. What I'm going to say is going to obviously have a lot of people upset here. Boxing's an expectation game. You want to root for a guy, whether it's Saul Alvarez, whether it's Joseph Parker. There are a certain number of guys out there who have game, right? Those guys do, and also have image. And a lot of people say, you know what? This guy is representing plug in the country. Mexico, New Zealand, whatever. With class, he's knocking guys out. Corporate sponsors are flocking to him. In Joseph Parker's case, Burger King, you'll see it on the ring, right? Burger King is a big sponsor of his career, right? You know, in a world of boxing where a lot of the guys are a little bit edgy, right? You're hearing about guys who've had prison records, right? A lot of the guys, you know, have had problems in the past. We'll just put it that way. Had careers interrupted for prison stints during their careers, right? Might say things, big names, that you might consider to be bigoted toward religions, right? Whatever. In that sport, when you see a guy like a Joseph Parker, you take a step back. It's easy to root for the guy. You say, you know what, this is the kind of guy who, you know, young kids could be inspired by, right? This is the kind of guy who seems to understand his position in the sport, that a lot of people are pinning their hopes on him, right? When he goes out in a fight and he has the first big test of his career against a real contender, Carlos Takam is legit, folks, right? And when Joseph Parker is still standing after 4 or 5 rounds and he's still throwing punches and he's doing what he can to try to win the fight, we're going to look at several of the rounds and say, you know what? Joseph Parker is exceeding my expectations, right? He's doing more than I thought he would. I applaud him for taking the fight. I applaud him for being in the fight, not just for the payday, but for the win, right? Also, let's face it too, Takam, and I believe David Hay pointed this out, is a tougher opponent than anyone that most of these other young heavyweights have fought, right? Certainly, he's better than anyone Anthony Joshua has fought, right? Well, I'm going to play Scrooge here. Look, Joseph Parker has a lot of game. No question about it. He fought heroically. No question about it. The tape is up on YouTube. I believe I've put it in my favorites folder. Right? My point to you is simply this. In the 5th round, Parker gets hit hard and he has no answers. He's simply lurching around the ring. I gave Takam the 5th round, the 6th round, and the 7th round. I had Takam up 5 rounds to 2 after 7. I know this is not what you're hearing, right? My point to you is simply this. Kill the volume. Just kill the volume. You watch a tape of the fight now. The 8th round is a classic. Joseph Parker shows you some of the skills that have landed him in the conversation as being part of the future of the heavyweight division. He looks spectacular. But then he runs out of gas. The 8th round, that's debatable. The 9th round, I had Carlos Takam winning the 9th round, right? I had Parker winning the 10th and 11th rounds. I thought Takam took the 12th round. I thought Takam won the fight. Now look, older fighters have it tough in boxing, right? If you're an investor, who do you want to invest in? The older fighter or the young lion who looks like you could build an ad campaign around him and a portion of the boxing public is going to view the guy as invincible, right? Who are you going to invest in right now? Bernard Hopkins or Canelo, right? Well, just understand, though, that if you're a judge scoring a fight, and I know Parker wins by unanimous decision, but if you're a judge scoring a fight, you're actually supposed to score the fight. You're not supposed to score the guy's image. You're not supposed to look and say, you know what, this guy is the hope of, millions of boxing fans. You're not supposed to say, this guy has corporate sponsorship deals. He's a good corporate pitch man. This guy's a great headliner because he's bringing a lot of people into the sport. Right? Now, I know boxing is like figure skating. Right? People's opinions matter. Right? You watch an event and then you have a scorecard that's filled with your opinion on it. Right? And I understand the CompuBox numbers have Parker landing marginally more punches than Carlos Takam. My point to you, though, is as politically unpopular as it is, can we just score this fight based on who actually won it? Right? In my opinion, the person who wins the fight, and I know New Zealand's going to be upset with me, I'll let the chips fall where they may, the person who won the fight was Carlos Takam. Right? It wasn't Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker did much better than I thought he would. I'll concede the point. Joseph Parker has an explosive left hand, right? Great jab. One of the best jabs in the heavyweight division. Great left hook. When he lets go in the 8th round, you're noticing hand speed. He has a 5th gear. He has a lot going for him. But understand, he spent too much of this fight with his back up against the ropes. He's not defensively gifted. He can't roll with punches. He can't sense when the punches are coming. He's been such a hunter that when he's the hunted, he's limited. Right? I believe several fighters out there looked at the tape of this fight, and they now feel, I'm sure, they have the blueprint to beat him. Right? An old vet, an OG, and I know he has a full dance card. He's going to fight Shannon Briggs in the fall, right? But an OG like a David Haye. In fact, forget Haye. Shannon Briggs right now. I'm sure looked at the tape of this and is thinking, you know what? If I get Parker on his back foot, and if I throw wide left hands like Takam did, right? If I get Parker out of his comfort zone, he's just going to lean back. He's going to try to roll with punches, but he's going to get hit with shots. In other words, no, he's not Ali. No, he's not Vitali. Right? He's trying to work a length dynamic. The problem is, as he leans, you'll notice he's actually getting hit with shots. Someone who is sudden, someone who can play, let's say, a Sean Porter, David Haye game. In other words, you're outside, then you're up in the guy's grill, and you have the guy surprised at how sudden you are. They might find Joseph Parker to be naked. So let me say this. The heavyweight division right now is riveting. In my mind, it's boxing's best. Because you have guys with titles, Anthony Joshua, for example, Deontay Wilder, who seem to have holes in their game, who we don't know a lot about. Right? Anthony Joshua in the 11th round, what does that look like? We don't know. Right? You have other guys who look talented, right? Tyson Fury. But then, of course, there's films of him hitting the canvas against guys like Steve Cunningham, who really aren't on anyone's list as one of the biggest punchers in the division. Right? He's gaining weight between fights. I know Peter Fury on his Twitter account said, hey, he's losing the weight nicely. The point is he has to lose the weight. Right? You wonder, hey, is this guy going to implode? That's, of course, when he's not giving extremely inappropriate interviews where he's opining about things like religion and stuff like that. Right? Well, now you have Joseph Parker. I know fans, many of you are going to leap in the comment section and say he won that fight. I had him winning, 116, 112, like a couple of the judges did. Folks, this ain't close to a 116, 112 fight. Right? This scoring's as curious as the scoring in the Canelo Amir Khan fight. By the way, Teddy Atlas, in an interview here online done by one of my brothers in arms, right? The YouTube boxing community. Some YouTuber popped out the woods and interviewed Teddy Atlas, right? Teddy knows a thing or two about boxing, right? Teddy used to train people like Mike Tyson, Alexander Povetkin, Michael Moore, right? Multiple heavyweight champs. Teddy's scorecard for that Amir Khan fight had Khan pitching a shutout. Understand. Oscar De La Hoya, Canelo's promoter, said he was worried because on his scorecard, Canelo was losing the fight. Just understand, one of the judges had Canelo winning wide. This is with the superstar trainer and the opponent's own promoter feeling that Canelo was losing. On my scorecard, I had Canelo only winning one round. In other words, I was kinder to Canelo than Teddy Atlas was. Now, I know many of you are going to then say, hey, what about Harold Letterman? All I can say is simply this. Is there a bigger attraction on HBO Boxing than Saul Alvarez? Right? Who exactly is signing Harold Letterman's checks? Look, I respect Letterman. I do. Right? But let's just say the scoring there is a little bit dodgy. Right? Canelo leaves no doubt getting the KO. Right? Let's feel fortunate that fight didn't go the distance, because if they raised Canelo's hand at the end of that fight, that would have been ridiculous. Well, here they raised Joseph Parker's hand at the end of this fight. Now, I'll say this. Parker is courageous. Right? I could see Parker here winning, and I'm being kind here, 5 rounds. Right? So 7-5, not out of the ordinary. Right? Okay, Parker's courageous. 116-112 for Parker. Come on. That's a joke. I'm just going to throw out the challenge here online. Look at the video. Right? If you see what I see, Joseph Parker backing up. Oh, an occasional left hand's hitting him upside the head. Oh, his back's up against the ropes, and he's not dodging and stuff like that. It's not a rope-a-dope where he's up on the ropes and he actually wants to be. And he has his hands up and he's looking to counter. No, he has his back up on the ropes, and he's up on the ropes like a young guy clueless. Right? He's looking at his opponent. He's being courageous. He's looking at his opponent. He's baffled. He's losing the rounds. Right? So this is that rare video where I congratulate Joseph Parker for a performance I certainly didn't expect. Right? He looked better than I thought he would look. But at the same time, he lost the fight. Right? I know the Carlos Takam people are being diplomatic here. Right? Boxing's a political world. Carlos Takam, I'm sure, wants other championship opportunities. Right? But just understand that if this fight were in Takam's country, if Takam were the favorite in the fight, not Joseph Parker, right, the scorecards would have been flipped. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Let me say this too. Don't be too fooled by who's getting publicity at heavyweight. Right? The division's even deeper than any of us want to admit. I'm just telling you, Andy Ruiz, who, is missing so much. Every time I look at my milk carton, I'm expecting to see a picture of him. I'm just telling you, Andy Ruiz has the fastest hands in the heavyweight division. Right? The heavyweight division is the kind of division now where, to me, a guy like a David Haye, an OG who's been there, who's been on top, who still has hand speed and who has power, even though he's in his 30s. Keep in mind, heavyweights age slower than everyone else. Even though he's in his 30s, and even though a lot of these young lions are unbeaten, aren't there too many unbeaten guys in the division? Doesn't that kind of show you that guys aren't fighting each other when this many guys are unbeaten? Parker's unbeaten. Joshua's unbeaten. Wilder's unbeaten. Fury's unbeaten. At a certain point, don't we say, gee, mathematically, shouldn't these guys be fighting each other? Just understand there are opportunities for guys who aren't even on the radar right now at heavyweight. Let me say this too. because of what happened to Lucas Brown. And let me say this. That Lucas Brown drug test situation looks curious to me. Right? While I'm not giving Povetkin the benefit of the doubt, I am giving Big Daddy Lucas Brown the benefit of the doubt. That drug testing situation looks awfully strange to me. Right? Because Lucas Brown got stripped of the title, Ruslan Chagayev is now fighting Freza Kendo. Right? Now people are saying, Freza Kendo, how does he deserve a shot at the title? I'm here to tell you, if you look at the Freza Kendo Chagayev fight before, an argument can be made Freza Kendo won that fight. Right? So my point to you is, don't be fooled by who's on the radar. You got guys off the screen right now who have a chance, in my opinion, at the heavyweight title. Right? I'll say Joseph Parker gets the win. That's what matters to the boxing cognoscente. Okay, fine. If Joseph Parker's on his front foot and he's flashing that jab, you're in trouble. If you get him on his back foot, given that he fights a little bit upright, given that he can't seem to defend that wide left, right? Given that when he's on the ropes, he doesn't really seem to know what to do, right? Let's just say an opponent would have an opportunity against him, right? A good opportunity. In fact, I thought this last opponent beat him. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Let me just close by saying, this is the sport we love. A sport where Teddy Atlas is ringside, is watching a fight. He says, oh yeah, I have caught pitching a shutout. And the judges disagree with him. Right? That's the sport we're watching. Right? You cannot just take at face value the written reports on a fight, the official results. If you kill the volume, if you get past the Jim Watts of the world, guys who seem to know who's the fan favorite in fights and seems to have scoring that reflects that, if you could just kill the volume and watch the fight, just ask yourself some obvious questions. Whose punches seem to be hurting the opponent more? Isn't that relevant for boxing? Right? You see a guy backed up on the ropes. Ask yourself, okay, is this a Bernard Hopkins type cat and mouse game? Is he up on the ropes with an agenda? Or is this guy just up on the ropes? Right? Then you see a guy, getting hit with shots, and you're like, wow. He didn't seem able to block that wide left early, and he's not blocking it later in the fight. Right? Basic questions. Anyway, let me hear from you. Leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Right? Tell me what I'm missing on this fight. I'll concede my pre-fight, thoughts on the fight turned out to be wrong. Right? Turned out to be wrong. I give Parker credit for going 12 rounds. Right? Because in the heavyweight division these days, guys like Anthony Joshua have hardly ever gone 12 rounds. I don't think Joshua's gone 12 rounds yet. Right? So I'll give Parker credit. He has the goods. The 8th round, he's flashing brilliance in that 8th round. Right? But I thought he lost the fight. Let's keep it real. Let me hear what you think in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.